December 15th, 1985. Washington, D.C. Convention Center. US Marshals watch 100 guests arrive for a VIP Redskins party. A man in a chicken costume dances near the buffet. Every single guest is a wanted criminal. Murderers, drug lords, armed robbers, men who escaped prison years ago. They are unaware the waiters have hidden pistols, that the cheerleaders are secretly checking them for weapons, that their name tags are color-coded by threat level. The MC taps the microphone. 100 faces turn toward the stage. 5 cold words follow. You're all under arrest. The insane part? These criminals RSVP'd. They thanked the organizers. Some bragged to neighbors about their free tickets. How did US Marshals convince America's most dangerous fugitives to walk into their own arrest? 1985, Washington, D.C. The US Marshals had a problem that was eating them alive. Across America, 250,000 fugitives roamed free. In the nation's capital alone, hundreds of wanted men lived openly in neighborhoods where patrol cars rarely bothered to cruise. These were dangerous people, the kind who slept with loaded pistols under their pillows and reached for a weapon before answering any knock at the door. Years on the run had made them paranoid, alert, always ready. When someone knocked on their door, they reached for a weapon first. The Marshals carried warrants for these men, but serving those warrants meant kicking down doors. And behind any door could be a shotgun pointed right at chest level. Deputies returned from raids with bullet holes in their vests. Some returned in coffins. Capture one criminal, and 3 more names get added to the pile before the paperwork is even finished. District Marshal Herbert Rutherford watched it all unfold. His best deputies were burning out, quitting, walking away from the job entirely. He stood at too many gravesides, said goodbye to too many good men. A thought kept circling in his mind. Hunt them one by one, and we lose. We run out of officers before we run out of criminals. This is slow death, dressed up as law enforcement. Back at headquarters, the mood had turned dark. Veteran marshals gathered in corners and traded war stories that sounded more like nightmares. A partner taking fire through a doorframe. A suspect slipping out the back window while the team stormed the front. A stray bullet finding an innocent neighbor. Rutherford needed something that seemed impossible. A way to arrest dozens of armed, paranoid fugitives all at the same time. A plan that left them completely helpless. One thought kept him awake. What temptation could override years of survival instincts? October 1985. A diner somewhere in Washington, D.C. Chief Deputy Toby Roche stared at the screen. The Redskins were on fire that season. 7 victories, only 1 defeat, and the whole city was dreaming of a championship. Getting into a game was nearly impossible. People were paying $300 to scalpers for a single seat. Football had united the entire city. While crack and crime tore neighborhoods apart, the Redskins gave people something to believe in. Millionaires and street hustlers, cops and criminals. They all wore the same colors on game day. Roche's eyes stayed on the television. His mind started racing. A napkin became his canvas. Free Redskins tickets, the most desired item in the entire city. A fancy VIP party where lucky winners come to collect their prize. Get the fugitives comfortable, celebrating, completely relaxed. Then lock every door. Arrest every single person in the room at once. The plan broke every rule in the book. It depended on dangerous criminals being careless enough to walk straight into an obvious setup. But Roche believed something about human nature. Clever men still have blind spots. Roche knew greed was the biggest one. It could make the smartest fugitive do something incredibly stupid. Rutherford examined the napkin. Rough lines, wild concept, but it made sense. A slow nod. The idea was moving upstairs. 2 men sitting in a diner had just mapped out the boldest sting in American history. But a sketch on a napkin doesn't arrest criminals. They needed authorization, a shell company, 3,000 invitations, and cops willing to pose as waiters and cheerleaders. They needed fugitives to actually come. And they needed everything to run flawlessly. Because if one suspicious criminal sensed a setup, the party could erupt into a bloodbath. What psychological flaw could lure a man who dodged capture for years into willingly entering a room packed with police? And what would happen when 100 armed fugitives all realized, at the exact same moment, that they'd been set up? October 1985. Roche presented the idea to his superiors. A few deputies in the room burst out laughing. Inviting murderers to brunch sounded absurd. But Roche kept talking, and the laughter gradually disappeared. The scheme was elaborate. Create a fake company named Flagship International Sports Television. The acronym, FIST. It matched perfectly with the Marshals' Fugitive Investigative Strike Team. Print 3,000 letters telling recipients they had won free tickets to the December 15th Redskins-Bengals game. Throw in a raffle for season tickets and a trip to Super Bowl 20. Mail them to every fugitive with a known address in Washington, D.C. Invite them all to a VIP brunch at a convention center. Then arrest every single person who walked through the door. Here was the psychological genius behind it. Life as a fugitive is pure isolation. Every friendship becomes a risk, every celebration a trap, every quiet moment just the calm before the storm. Then one day, a letter shows up. VIP treatment at a Redskins party, free food, champagne, a chance to feel like a winner instead of a hunted animal. The Marshals understood something about human nature. They were offering what fugitive life strips away, the feeling of being special, of belonging somewhere. That craving can overpower survival instincts. By late November, the letters were delivered. 3,000 of them scattered across Washington, D.C. Then came empty days. 1 week of silence, then another. Tension mounted. The fear grew that the fugitives had seen through the whole thing. Then the phone rang. A man wanted for armed robbery was calling. He confirmed he would attend the party. Then he politely asked if his girlfriend could come along. The deputy cheerfully said his girlfriend could come too. When she put down the phone, she had to cover her mouth to stop herself from screaming with joy. One fish caught, but dozens more were needed for this to succeed. The calls began slowly. Then they poured in. Day after day, fugitives called the flagship hotline to confirm their spot at a party that would end with them in handcuffs. Hardened criminals thanked the receptionists kindly. One man wanted for assault asked about the dress code. Another had detailed questions about the food. A third wanted to know everything about the open bar. The deputies nearly bit through their lips trying to stay composed while wanted felons happily booked their own arrests. Within 10 days, 160 fugitives had responded. Dozens more intended to simply walk in without calling first. Word came back through informants that some wanted men were openly bragging to neighbors about their free tickets. One fugitive apparently showed off his invitation to his own parole officer. The most daring, most careless criminals in the city were adding themselves to the guest list. A handful of cautious ones threw their invitations away. But caution turned out to be much rarer than greed. Here's what kept the task force up at night. The guests arriving could be armed. They were desperate men. Men willing to kill to stay free. If just one guest sensed something wrong before the takedown, if one paranoid criminal noticed waiters paying too much attention, cheerleaders acting too friendly, or exits being guarded too carefully, he could reach for a weapon. One gun out would mean a dozen more. And that ballroom would turn into a war zone within seconds. The Marshals had only one advantage: complete surprise. Only one chance to pull this off. A task force of 166 officers assembled from around the country. Local cops were deliberately avoided since fugitives might recognize them. The convention center's grand ballroom was booked. Every entrance and exit was charted. A tactical team was stationed in the hallways, hidden but prepared. The trap was ready. The invitations were out. Now came the hardest part: teaching tactical officers to act like party staff. In a warehouse across town, SWAT specialists practiced carrying trays and pouring drinks with warm smiles. One wrong move, one cop habit slipping through, and the whole operation would collapse into chaos. The smartest part of the whole plan was the cheerleader welcome. Female deputies dressed in Redskins uniforms would stand at the entrance and greet every fugitive with a big, warm hug. It sounds crazy, but it was genius. That hug was actually a weapons check. In 3 or 4 seconds of friendly embrace, the cheerleader could feel for guns, knives, or anything metal hidden under clothing. Clean. The guest got sent through with a bright smile. The fugitives would walk toward their own arrest while thanking the woman who had just searched them. 2 of the biggest marshals drew the strangest assignments. One wore a full-body chicken mascot costume. The other dressed as a team mascot in a headdress and jersey. The costumes served a purpose. Dancing mascots and loud music created distractions. If fugitives were laughing at a chicken doing silly moves, they wouldn't notice waiters watching too closely or ushers standing near exits. The team rehearsed everything in a warehouse. Early runs had mistakes. A waiter used a colleague's real name. The deputy in the chicken suit overheated. Small errors, but dangerous ones. So they practiced again and again, until the operation ran like a theater production with life or death consequences. Every undercover officer carried a hidden pistol, but drawing it meant everything had gone wrong. During final rehearsals, the message was simple: stay in character, trust the plan, and hope the performance is flawless. December 15th, 1985. Temperature close to freezing. Pre-dawn darkness. By 5:30 in the morning, unmarked trucks had finished delivering equipment through the convention center's back entrance. Banners, buffet supplies, sound equipment, the chicken costume. Cases upon cases of champagne. By sunrise, the grand ballroom had become the most elaborate trap in law enforcement history. Buffet tables overflowed with food. Scrambled eggs, crispy bacon, fresh pastries, colorful fruit displays. Redskins banners covered every wall. Red and gold balloons filled the corners. Television screens showed looped highlight reels of the team's greatest plays. The sound system blasted fight songs. Flagship international sports television posters surrounded every entrance. It looked exactly like what it was meant to look like. A VIP celebration for lucky winners, a party, a gift from fate, a cage for 100 wanted men. The deputies moved to their positions. Waiters stationed behind buffet tables, cheerleaders placed by the entrance, ushers gathered near the registration desk. The chicken mascot practiced his waddle one last time. The tactical team waited in the hallways, unseen, prepared. At 9 in the morning, the doors would open. Every undercover officer inspected their hidden weapon one final time. Chamber loaded. Safety on. Holster placed where it wouldn't show through the costume. Then they waited. The first fugitive appeared at 8 in the morning, a full hour early, too eager to wait. The team rushed into character. A cheerleader met him at the entrance with a radiant smile. "Oh my God, congratulations. You're really here." The rehearsed hug confirmed he was clean. "You're a winner. Right this way." A tuxedoed usher led him to the registration desk, where a hostess matched his name against the invitation list and attached a bright name tag to his chest. The tag's color secretly indicated his threat level. Blue meant low risk. Red meant dangerous. For the most violent offenders, the ones flagged for assault, armed robbery, and homicide, the staff would call them double winners. A code phrase that signaled other marshals to monitor them very closely when the takedown began. The fugitive noticed absolutely nothing. He was too busy smiling at the free donuts and hot drinks, feeling like the luckiest man in Washington, D.C. More guests trickled in. Then they flooded. By mid-morning, the ballroom contained over 100 wanted felons, the largest gathering of criminals under one roof in Washington's history. And every single one of them had zero idea that they were surrounded. They piled plates at the buffet. They touched champagne glasses with strangers. They laughed at the chicken mascot's silly dance moves. Some recognized each other from past crimes or old prison terms. But today, they just shrugged and joked like buddies at a tailgate party. The atmosphere was dreamlike, almost unreal. Charles Watkins, one of DC's 10 most wanted fugitives for homicide, stood near the buffet. He quietly ate a Danish pastry while discussing the Redskins' playoff chances with another guest. Accused murderers talked with drug lords about the weather. Armed robbers posed for pictures with the chicken mascot. Years of paranoia melted away in minutes. For one glorious morning, they felt like winners, like men who finally belonged somewhere. The trap was full. The doors were about to lock. Now came the most dangerous 30 seconds any of them would ever face. On stage, Deputy Marshal Louis McKinney, the MC in his absurd top hat and tails, walked to the microphone and tapped it twice. The music faded. The room slowly quieted. 100 faces turned toward the stage. Undercover marshals drifted toward the exits and locked them one by one. Movements so natural that absolutely nobody noticed. Behind the walls, the tactical team in full combat gear slid silently into breach positions. McKinney smiled at the crowd like a game show host about to reveal the grand prize. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming. I hope you're enjoying yourselves. The fugitives cheered and lifted their glasses. Now, before we head to the game, McKinney continued, raising one hand dramatically, we have one big surprise for all of you. His voice hung in the air. Every marshal in the room stopped breathing. 100 armed fugitives stood between them and the exits. The tactical team had their hands on door handles. The cheerleaders had disappeared. The waiters' hands were moving toward hidden holsters. If even one person in that crowd sensed what was coming, if one paranoid criminal moved before the signal, the next 3 seconds would decide who walked out alive. McKinney's smile disappeared. His voice dropped to something cold and hard. You're all under arrest. One heartbeat of complete silence. The words simply refused to register in their minds. Then the side doors burst open simultaneously. 25 tactical officers poured into the ballroom in full combat gear. Weapons raised, spreading across the room in a formation they had practiced 100 times. The music died. The mascot froze. McKinney dropped the game show act and shouted commands. Put your hands on top of your heads. The cheerleaders had vanished. The waiters had drawn hidden pistols, and 100 fugitives stared down the barrels of guns held by the same people who had been pouring their champagne 5 minutes earlier. A few fugitives let out shocked, nervous laughs. Surely this was part of the show, some kind of elaborate prank? Then they saw the tactical gear, the real badges, the complete stillness of fingers on triggers. The laughter turned into curses. One man, wanted for assault, jumped from his seat toward an exit. But the door was locked. Marshals tackled him before he made it 3 steps, slamming him face first into the carpet. Around the room, hands rose slowly into the air. Nobody reached for a weapon. Whatever fight these men carried on the streets, whatever toughness they had built over years of dodging the law, vanished instantly. Overwhelming force. Total surprise. Their own greed had trapped them. There was nowhere to run. Nothing to do but give up. Marshals moved through the crowd, shouting commands, clicking handcuffs onto wrists, zip-tying anyone who paused. On your knees. Hands where I can see them. Nobody move. The obedience was almost strange. 100 dangerous men dropping to the floor without resistance. Too shocked to fight back. A few mumbled protests. Wait, there's been a mistake. I didn't do anything. But most couldn't even speak. 5 minutes ago, they had been VIPs at the party of their lives, raising glasses to their good fortune, dreaming about Super Bowl trips and season tickets. Now they lay face down on the carpet next to spilled champagne glasses and half-eaten plates of eggs. The entire takedown, from McKinney's announcement to the last pair of handcuffs snapping shut, lasted under 4 minutes. When the room finally went quiet, the marshals counted heads. 101 fugitives arrested, 0 shots fired, 0 injuries on either side. The most dangerous mass arrest in American history had succeeded without a single scratch. Outside, yellow school buses waited in a row, ready to transport the prisoners to processing. Marshals walked handcuffed men in groups past the entrance, under the banner that still read, "Congratulations." Photographers snapped the final absurd image for the next morning's front pages. Inside the destroyed ballroom, surrounded by deflating balloons and abandoned buffet trays and the crumpled chicken costume, the undercover team finally breathed out. Grins spread across faces. Shouts of disbelief filled the room. They had completed one of the largest mass arrests in American law enforcement history. Using absolutely nothing but fake letterhead, rented costumes, a copycat mascot, and one brutal psychological truth. Even a man who has spent years running from the law simply cannot resist the feeling of being a winner for a day. As one cuffed fugitive shuffled past a group of exhausted marshals, he stopped and managed a crooked, regretful grin. "Man, you guys got me good." A deputy, still wearing his sweat-soaked tuxedo, patted him on the shoulder and laughed. But the truth was simpler than that. The criminals caught themselves. They walked into their own prison, shook hands with the people who would arrest them, posed for pictures with undercover agents, even thanked them for the hospitality. All because of free football tickets that never existed.